Hello everyone, my name is Andita Putri Purnama from SPRM Corporate Communication Blended Learning Batch 16. I'm excited to share my thesis proposal with you. My thesis is titled Interpersonal Communication as a Strategy by the Teachers to Overcome Communication Barriers During Distance Learning in Indonesian Community Center in Johor Bahru, Malaysia. To begin, let's talk about the background of my research. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant impact on education, with schools closed for prolonged periods to limit the spread of the virus. As a result, many educational institutions have had to adopt distance learning models to continue providing education to students. However, the transition to distance learning, especially in Indonesia, has not been without its challenges. Many students and teachers have struggled with the lack of face-to-face interaction and the difficulties in maintaining student engagement and motivation in an online environment. That's why I'm interested to elaborate on this topic for my final thesis. Now, why I chose Indonesian Community Center or ICC in Johor Bahru as the case study. Aside from students from all over Indonesia, there is also another group of children affected by the regulation during COVID-19, which are the children of Indonesian migrant workers in Malaysia. As one of the mechanisms of citizens' protection in Johor Bahru by the government of Indonesia is the establishment of the Indonesian Community Center or ICC Johor Bahru, which is built for the children of Indonesian migrant workers. ICC Johor Bahru was founded in 2014 with only 25 students in the first year. With the support of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology of Indonesia, ICC Johor Bahru now expands into one of the Indonesian schools abroad, known as Sekolah Indonesia Luar Negeri, that accommodates primary and secondary level education. Professional teachers are also provided from Indonesia so that ICC Johor Bahru operated just like an Indonesian school is supposed to be. However, even if ICC run as a regular school from the Indonesian government perspective, the situation of the school and the nature of learning cannot be compared to most regular school in Indonesia, even with another Sekolah Indonesia Luar Negeri, due to various factors in these children's upbringing. According to research by Wahyono in 2007, some of the factors are 1. Lack of legal documentation. 2. Limited access to education. 3. Discrimination, because these undocumented children of Indonesian migrant workers in Malaysia can face discrimination and stigma that can lead to social exclusion and hinder their integration into society. And the last one is exploitation, because these children can also be vulnerable to exploitation, including to child labor and trafficking. These factors and also my previous experience working in Indonesian Consulate General in Johor Bahru makes ICC Johor Bahru very close to my heart, and it urges me to contribute something throughout this research, hopefully for the better of this school in the future. Moving on to my research question and objectives, my study seeks to answer question number 1, what are the communication barriers in distance learning in ICC Johor Bahru during a COVID-19 pandemic? And question number 2 is, how do the teachers at ICC Johor Bahru use interpersonal communication strategies to overcome the barriers in distance learning? As you know, my research focuses on interpersonal communication as a communication strategy to overcome barriers in distance learning. Before I could begin my research, I needed to conduct a comprehensive review of the relevant literature in this field. From the literature review, I examined 3 relevant topics, which are: number 1, overview of distance learning; number 2, distance learning during COVID-19; and number 3 is the barriers to distance learning. From the literature review, I found a few gaps as follow. First, there are many literature reviews about distance learning during COVID-19 in Indonesian schools, but there is none that I found that focuses on Indonesian schools located abroad. Secondly, most research about distance learning during COVID-19 was done using quantitative methods through surveys. Only a few that used qualitative method and in-depth interview. These gaps are also one of the reasons for me to pursue this research even further. One of the key findings from various literature reviews is about communication barriers in distance learning by Batikulon and others in 2021. They classified the communication barriers in distance learning in 5 categories, which are: 1, technological barrier; 2, individual barrier; 3, domestic barrier; 4, institutional barrier; and 5, community barriers. Another key finding is about interpersonal communication skills or strategies from the research by Ding that is done in 2021, which mention 9 interpersonal communication skills or strategies such as care, clarity, credibility, rapport, stroke, immediacy, confirmation, humor, and praise. During this review, I examined several theories that are relevant to my research questions. One of the key theories that I explored is, of course, communication theory, and then furthermore, I also explore computer-mediated communication theory, and last but not least is interpersonal communication theory. By examining relevant theories, concept, and framework, I was able to develop a solid conceptual framework for my study. This framework, as you can see from the slide, will guide my research design, data collection and analysis, and will help me to answer my research question. This research will be conducted on the premise of the constructivist paradigm that emphasizes, as I quoted from De Carlo in 2018, that truth as varying, socially constructed, and ever-changing. And this research will highlight the cybernetic communication tradition, which is based on the theory of information processing and provides an explanation for the system complexity and their frequent failure because of the barriers that exist between them. Now, let's discuss my research methodology. To answer my research questions, I plan to use case study, which I believe is the most appropriate qualitative method for this study. Additionally, I will collect data using semi-structured interviews with the research focus on communication barriers based on Batikulon et al. Theory for answering research question number 1. And next, I will use an in-depth interview with the teachers and students using 9 interpersonal skills and strategies by Ding as the focus to answer research question number 2. Next, I would like to discuss the expected outcomes of my research. I believe this research is important because this can be a reference for the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology of Indonesia in general, and the Indonesian Community Center in Johor Bahru specifically regarding the exemplary conduct of distance learning in the future. And this also can be a reference for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia and specifically Indonesian Consulate General in Johor Bahru, Malaysia, in providing protection and education for Indonesian children in Malaysia. However, I should also note that there are potentially limitations and challenges to my study that I have considered and hopefully can be tackled with future research by other researchers. Lastly is the timeline of my thesis writing. Right now, the thesis writing process is on the research proposal and interview questions development. I plan to conduct the interview with teachers and students via Zoom meeting on April and May 2023. Furthermore, I will do the data analysis and process the whole research findings on report from June to July 2023. And hopefully, as scheduled by the academic of LSPR, the final thesis will be done on August 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all for my presentation. Thank you for listening and I look forward to your feedback. Thank you.